Well, welcome everyone. Today we have Gayle Piepho, who is a longtime GIC teacher and trainer as well. We actually got to hang out a little bit this summer because we were there. I was there filming one of the training sessions that she was doing, which was very cool. So, Gayle, thank you so much for being on for an interview with us today in the middle of, I know, like you said, it's semester finals this week for you. So, full schedule and all that good stuff, but appreciate you being on and excited to talk a little bit about your take on GIC and stuff.
Cool. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's just dive right in and kick things off. If you could give us maybe a little bit of a window into your teaching background, your experience of teaching and career and so on, but then also kind of how you got connected with geometry and in construction and got started with the program.
Okay, so this is my 25th year of teaching math. I've been teaching at the same school all 25 years. Started out with the general Algebra 1, Algebra 2 geometry classes. Then I was able to take over AP Calculus, which was a huge challenge. My next challenge was teaching the calculus-based physics class. I did that for about 10 years, which was an even bigger challenge. And my kind of final challenge for my career is teaching geometry and construction. So that's been a really cool thing for me to be involved with. I've done it for 7 years now. And it's been fun to see how I've changed as a teacher and how we've been able to make the class work for our school and our students.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's interesting. I'll be curious to hear a little bit of your take since you have so many years of experience teaching, let's just say more traditional math classes or math approaches. And then also, a good solid block of like 70 plus years of GIC experience as well to hear
Right.
some of your take on some of the ways that they're maybe different or, I wish they are. And can you tell us a little bit about your kind of getting started years then, your first year or two. What was it like to transition into the geometry and construction classroom approach and program after, like decade plus of doing it a little differently?
Well, I will say I've taught geometry all my years of teaching, except for one semester. And I've always wanted to do applications of everything. One of my favorite projects was a flipped house project where I would bring in carpet samples and paint samples and baseboard, and they had to figure out how much it costs to flip a house. And then when our curriculum coordinator for our district, when they found out about geometry and construction, they came to us and said, who would be interested in teaching this? And obviously my hand went up right away. I knew it would be a huge challenge. I thought it was really cool that you have another teacher that is the expert in the construction. And I was really excited to learn how to do all the construction stuff as well. At the beginning, the first couple of years, the first year is obviously a lot. I am a very prepared teacher. I really don't like to give problems out that I haven't done and am the expert at. So that was a lot to keep up with that. And then on top of it, we were building a tiny house that was going to be transitional housing for people in downtown St. Louis, which was a super cool project. So we were building a house, and my construction teacher had never been a part of building an actual house. So luckily she had there was another teacher in our district that was building the same house. So they basically had a morning meeting every morning to, say, okay, here's what we're going to be doing. We basically stayed on the same plan, as far as timing goes with that. So much learning. There was so many times, it was very humbling to know to figure out how much I really don't know. Especially like in construction, the students would ask me questions when I was in charge of their groups, and I'd say, let's think about it. And so we would work through that together, and then we'd get to a point, we'd say, let's go ask Ms. Casagrande. And so we would go ask, or I would have them go ask. And when they would ask, I'd be like, come back and tell me the answer. And so that was cool. That was just really fun to learn that way through the kids and let them see me, an adult that, I think I know everything, or they think I think I know everything. But just to be able to learn in that way was pretty cool. It took me a while to get in the groove of the block scheduling, because that was actually relatively new for our building. In our building, math classes were standard. And so for this being an hour and a half every day was a big change for me. But the cool thing was that everything was activity based. And so that took up the time in the class, which is kind of one of those, sticky parts where like, what are they going to do for 90 minutes? And so we would always try to fit in some kind of team building, get to know you activity. But then the learning comes from the activities, and that was really cool. So I kind of took myself out of the equation more because they're working together in groups and learning through all the different avenues, and then asking us the question if they had it. And again, that's a very different way than I was teaching before. So one of the things that I tell people is that by teaching this class, it really changed the way that I teach my other classes. So my calculus students, they probably think I don't teach them much, but they're learning more because I'm giving them one little tidbit and then they roll with it. And so they're struggling and learning through that struggle and perseverance, and then asking when the whole group gets stumped.
Yeah, I love that. And you've already started segueing into my next question a little bit, so I'll just ask it now. But if you could share maybe some other things you've been alluding to, like some of the things you like about the program, but if there are any other things more specifically that you would, your take on like what you enjoy about GIC, either from the curriculum or the classroom structure or any of those aspects, and kind of like why you've stuck with it for 7 years now, obviously as you didn't have to. So what are some of the things that sort of keep you coming back to wanting to stick with that curriculum and this program for your class?
Our school has really embraced the program. We have, originally we had one class of 24 students, and now we have a wait list and have to turn away people, unfortunately. So just that, and knowing that students love to come to math class, right? As a math teacher, you don't always hear that. And, I know when we talk about parent-teacher conference or talk to the parents at conferences, we'll ask, so what has your child talked about with your class? They say, many of them say, my child does not talk about school, but they talk about geometry and construction almost every day at dinner. I mean, right there, I just got chills.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right there, that says it all. We've got kids that maybe didn't like school or didn't like math, and they like coming to the class. Maybe they don't love math still, but they feel competent. Looking at students' grades that they were in before, maybe they weren't as successful in their math class, but they're learning in a different way. They're utilizing the construction aspect as, to help them learn the math, and therefore they're understanding it more. So just seeing the students' confidence in math grow has been phenomenal. So that's the sticking point for me. It's fun. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of talking. When our door is open and maybe I go to the restroom or something, I come back. I don't always know when I'm getting to my classroom because it's loud in a good, fun, productive way. And I know that kids are learning. Another thing is that while they're learning math, they're learning construction, they're also learning how to communicate with each other. They are learning how to persevere. On the construction sites, they do something wrong, they're a little bit afraid to tell us, but we, have told them it's okay, everything's fixable. And we help them problem solve through that. Okay, let's do it again, or let's get some more materials and let's, just fix this one part. So they're really able to persevere. So having teenagers myself, those things are huge. And I really want my child and my students to grow in the communication, the perseverance, problem solving, and then maybe learn a little bit of math while they're doing it.
Yeah, it really is such an interesting, um, very multi-dimensional approach. I know from recording a lot of the trainings, it always struck me how much time is spent on equipping teachers to think about the approach to classroom organization and classroom culture, not just like, here are the problem banks, like here's the curriculum. Can you talk just a little bit more about that aspect of things and maybe some of your perspective or experience on the approach to sort of developing classroom culture, classroom relationships, and some of those like 21st century skills that you were talking about?
Right. A little tidbit from before I taught GIC, there was one year that I had we always had our desks in rows. And one year I was like, I want to change my desks. And I was sharing a classroom with our department chair, who actually ended up being the construction teacher that I started with. And she's like, okay, arrange it however you want, but no pods. Because she taught freshmen and she was like, they can't, and I was like, well, I'm going to try pods, I will help switch them. And, so I was already going towards the pod aspect of, the group work and all of that. And so once I did that and put some marker boards, like whiteboards on the tables, and so then they're immediately, if they have a question, they're helping each other, through that avenue instead of talking to us. Can you remember or refresh my memory on the question? The 21st century skills, is that right?
Yeah, and just
Right.
21st century skills, classroom culture aspect, like the cooperative grouping structure piece, which you're already talking about. It's just to me, it's such an interesting aspect of the program.
Right. Okay.
That yeah.
And I think too, one of our main goals is to get them to know each other, because we have freshmen and sophomores. So the freshmen are like, oh no, we've got some sophomores in there. We've got, girls and boys. Are the boys the only ones that can do the construction? No, a lot of times the girls are really great detail oriented people, and they keep the gentleman on track. It's just a great mix of people. And so we want them to meet each other. So there's little things, especially at the beginning of the year, we every day we've got a little prompt of, here's what we want you to talk about. How many animals do you have? How many siblings do you have? What's your favorite this, different stuff. And one thing I even do on our group quizzes, I have them write all 4 of their names on every paper. So then that gets them to know their first name and their last name and how to spell them. So it's little things like that helps them know that their name is important. So it's not that who's absent today. Oh, that kid that sits right there. No, that's not how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just helping each person feel important and knowing that everybody has their strengths. And I think, the strength aspect, we've got some kids that maybe feel like they're not the best at math, but man, out there on the construction site, they are such a leader. And maybe they haven't felt that way at school before. And so, once they get that confidence out there, then maybe people are going to trust something that they say in the math classroom. And so just, it builds that confidence either in the math classroom or out in the construction site. I do know we have a lot of, we have new teacher learning walks at our school, and I always invite them in. They just stay for 5 minutes, and we just do our normal stuff. I never know when they're going to come in. And every time the principal and the teachers are like, that was just a good feel in the class. They were smiling, they were talking, they were interacting. It wasn't just me, I'm on my own. It was definitely a family kind of situation.
Yeah. And that takes a lot of work, to develop and maintain, but sounds like it's worthwhile work. Pays off a lot over time, over the course of the year, for sure.
Right. We're just getting ready to start second semester. And so the weather is going to be not great next week. And so, we're like, what are we going to do? We probably can't get outside with construction. Like, it's a no brainer. Let's do some team building. We're going to have a few kids that are going to swap classes, and so we can help them feel a part of the class and just try to, get everybody to remember the team aspect of everything.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And can you expand also a little bit on the co-teaching component? Again, you mentioned that a bit at the beginning, but the intersection and interconnection of two different teachers from two different disciplines collaborating to lead the class and connect with the students and everything is a really, a unique aspect of the program for sure. So how have you experienced that? What have you seen out of that? Or I don't know if you have any tips to share from your experience of sort of how to make that go well, and what are some of the benefits or payoffs of that relationship dynamic?
So I've had two different co-teachers. The first one retired. Trina was a math teacher. She had rehabbed all of her almost everything in her house, and she signed up to do the construction, which was phenomenal. We were great friends. We thought very similarly. We already had a great relationship. She was a hard worker. I'm a hard worker, so it was a fantastic team. And then now that she retired, I have a new partner, Mike, and he's phenomenal. He is a woods teacher, metals, project lead the way. So he really has a lot of different background. So it's been interesting having two different partners, because they think very differently, both awesome, but very differently. I've learned so much from the two of them. Trina and I did go to the workshop together, which was huge. Mike was joining me, so he went on his own. So we did not have that like get to know you part of the workshop. So it took us a little bit longer to get in our groove. And I didn't know him, because he was new to our building. But now we're really good friends, and we know a lot of ins and outs of each other. And so again, it takes a little bit of time if you're just getting to know each other. But man, it's so cool because the construction teacher has so many strengths, and the math teacher strengths as well. And watching both of us grow has been phenomenal. There'll be times that we're in the math class and I'm kind of solidifying the concepts that we're learning, and he'll go, huh, we've been doing that in construction. One of my favorite moments with Mike was our first year or second year. Yeah, it was the second year. And we were making washer game boxes. And some students decided to do a hexagon or an octagon. And so they were trying to figure out what angle to cut the pieces of lumber at. And so he showed them about that. And I was like, hey, and I asked just that group and him to pay attention. And I was like, look at this formula. And so we went through the n-2 times 180 formula. He's like, huh, so there's lots of just little moments of everything fitting together. So just, the ability to learn, the desire to learn, and to be vulnerable as a team. And so there were things that I'm like, I'm really not comfortable with this. Refresh my memory on it before we get in front of students. And then the same thing with me and the construction teacher. Okay, this is what we're learning today. Remember, this is what we're doing, how it deals with construction. I want you to make sure you chime in with that. So we just both have learned our niche and how to complement each other within the class. But definitely one of those things that you want to have two people. I know some people think, okay, I'm a math teacher and I've also built houses in the summer. Yes, you have strengths, but I think just having the two teachers in class is huge because you've got a bigger class. For us, safety is number one. And so having the two teachers in here, that's really important, to be able to have the students be safe and that they can do things correctly out on the construction site.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also another thing I wanted to follow up on, you had mentioned a little bit about your relationship with your school admin and sort of your larger teacher corps and everything. Can you talk just a little bit about interacting with your school administration or like counselors or some of the, the larger support structure of the school, in terms of, how you've worked at developing buy-in and support for your program, and any tips that you have about how you've gone about that, to help make it successful? Because you don't exist in a vacuum. Obviously, you're part of a larger organization, and some of the aspects of the program are a little bit different or a little unusual. So yeah, how has that worked for you?
So for us, it's really, we are a big district. We have 4 high schools. Our curriculum coordinator found the program and basically said, you guys are going to love this. Who's in? And 2 of our schools started it. And I was in one of the initial 2 schools. Our school really values this kind of learning. And so it was a no-brainer. We didn't even really, I don't even think we had to convince the administration. They said, okay. And so all I know is that we have had huge amount of support financially. I know it's a big startup cost. We have a little miniature Home Depot or Lowe's in our classroom closet. But they have just really supported us. The counselors, we talked to them a lot at the beginning to make sure we get, I don't want to say the right student in there because we want everybody in there, but to make sure they know what it is. We talk about, I know one of my first concerns was, okay, we put construction with it. Is it like dumbing down the curriculum? It's not at all. The problems are really applicable. They're challenging because they have a context. There's a lot of reading in the class. And so we wanted to make sure with the counselors that we get low-level kids in there, we get high-level kids. We make sure that we get the middle of the road. We're trying to get it to be really representative of the students at our school. So we talk to the kids that are in 8th grade in Algebra 1 and let them know, if you take this class, yes, you can still continue on in the honors track. And then our students that are need a little nudge in math, they actually have been, that's been the biggest growth that I have seen. I feel like my first year of teaching this, we probably had 5 students that would probably have not been very successful in traditional geometry. But because we tied it with the construction, because we spiraled everything in the group aspect and tying homework to working on construction, those students were very successful in the class. And not because the curriculum was lower, but because of the avenues that we took to help them learn it. So we were really trying to, talk to the counselors to get everybody in there and know what the class is all about.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned a little bit about interacting with parents. Have you found that sort of the student families and the wider community have kind of tuned into the program a bit more? Or what are some of the ways that you've worked at connecting with or developing the relationships with the community outside of the class or outside of school? And I don't know if there's any things that stories or windows into how that has gone compared to maybe just, a traditional geometry class on a Tuesday.
Definitely. Well, our first project fell into our lap. Like I said, it was a tiny house that was then craned and is now downtown St. Louis. It was a 1-bedroom house, and now it is used for people that were formerly homeless. And we got a lot of press for this. We partnered with a group called Social Justice for All. That was a couple of churches that were raising money for this. And that partnership was huge. So we were on TV a couple of times, I feel like, for that, the project and for the different class or the class structure. And since then, the parents have totally bought into it. The students, I know our second year, we built a tiny house on a trailer, and that was not a service project. And one of the girls was told us, I really signed up because I like the service aspect of it. So then that really kind of made us think, okay, let's think about it like that. So since then, we have really turned into a service project class. Our current projects are, we always build a couple of sheds. There's typically a need within our community or our district. During safety, we do some skill builders to help them learn the different skills. So they build something that they get to take home. They build a workbench together that we use throughout the rest of the year. Currently, we're building dog houses that will be donated to the Humane Society. This is our first year doing that project, and it's awesome. The kids are really loving it. We each year for the last 2 years, we've made bunk beds for Sleep in Heavenly Peace, which is a national organization that gives kids a place to sleep. I would highly recommend doing that. It's a great service project. We have also built some furniture. The students designed and built bookshelves or tables for Home Sweet Home, which is a warehouse for people that are financially struggling that just got into a home. So they need to furnish their house. What else do we do? We'll do a mini golf hole. Each group will make a hole for the mini golf. And we're looking to try to donate that to Task, which is an organization that has games and activities for children with special needs. There's one more. I don't remember. So
that's a pretty long list. So that's
yeah, we do a lot of little service projects, and it's amazing. Again, the support from the district is amazing. And so with all the service components, the community really finds out about it. Like one of our girls that we had last year, her mom always encouraged her to do a service project around Christmas time. And so last year when we were making the bunk beds, she had a drive for the bedding for the bunk beds. And she did it again this year. So I think they had like $1,000 donated that was going towards bedding.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's cool that us doing the construction things that's helping other people. First of all, it makes them really want to do it properly and make it good construction, even, more so than us telling them to do it right, so they want something that they can be proud of. And then just seeing it go out to other people is a great thing.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, last question, and then I know you've got a full schedule, so I can let you head off to your class stuff. But I'd love to hear any just student stories. If you have any sort of favorite student stories, I'm sure you have quite a few. But yeah, if you have like one or two that stand out in your memory of just like good kind of typical story of something that stood out of a way that a student connected with you or connected with the class, or yeah, from your experience over the years.
Right. Well, our first year we had a boy named Sam, and he's my Alex. He was struggling, and I have permission to talk about him. I have also had his sister. She was in our class a couple of years ago. But Sam struggled in math, and traditional school was a big struggle for him. And he was a sophomore our first year. And I think the timing of it could not have been more perfect because his mom was so excited. He knew he wanted to do something in construction, something in the trades, working with his hands. It started off a little bit rough because we were all learning, right? And so I was struggling as the teacher, they were struggling as the students, and then we eventually figured out, okay, we're going to put a little bit of extra work into it. He would come in the morning and he would, work really hard in the groups. On construction days, he would have his own tool belt and he would be the leader out there, right? So when I talk about the leaders in different parts of the classroom, that's him. You would tell him, I need your group to do this, and he would just lead them and do awesome. And then that gave him a little bit of confidence to work in the math classroom. He then ended up going to our tech program an alternative or a different school for half of the day to work with construction and HVAC. He then has graduated high school, which maybe was in question before our class. And he graduated high school, went to a state tech school, and now has graduated from that and is a very successful HVAC technician. So I think I heard that he's buying his first house and, just doing really, really well. So this class really gave him a jump start into knowing he really wanted to do construction, and learning how to do that during school. So that was cool to give him a different purpose in school instead of just sitting down in a classroom and learning math.
Yeah.
So that's our Sam. I know there are certain students that stick out in my mind with activities that we've done. Like there's one that I have who has, I think I tell this in the workshop, but there was the most introverted kid, and it was the hardest question that he had to ask, and he had to ask it in front of the whole class like 3, 4, 5 times. And the kids, the first time he said it really quietly, and they're like, can you say that again? Okay. And then he said it a little bit louder, and then they kind of were cheering him on, like, come on, Will, you can do it. They knew he was an introvert. He knew he was an introvert, and them backing him. That was just really cool. That's when I knew we had a good culture, that they were bringing out the best in him, even though it was an uncomfortable situation for him. And then when the class was able to answer the question, and whoever had the answer to that, there was little cheers going on.
Yeah.
There's another girl who struggled, and when we did one of the activities, it's the Acme construction for congruent triangles. She had to make her triangle 7 times before she passed. And the kids in her group were like, let me help. No, I'm gonna do it, and so I would kind of go over to her, and she'd say, no, I don't want to help. This is at the very end of the year, or not very end, but towards the end of the year. So cool that she didn't give up, right? And man, she came up there on that 7th time, and she knew she got it. And so I told her that she passed, and that smile was amazing. I immediately emailed her mom and dad and said, hey, just want to let you know, you should ask about geometry when you eat dinner tonight. And they emailed me back the next day and said, we didn't even have to ask. She told us, which she never does that as well.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, the impact of those little moments that turn into the big moments is really what makes this class an amazing thing. After 7 years and seeing how we teach it so differently each year, but it's what the kids need that year. Mike and I talk a lot about the kids and who's going through what, and what we can do to bring out the best in this student. And I feel like they're not doing their best. Well, what can we do to help that? That's that collaboration piece with the other teacher, that you can really get into the psychology of how can we help everybody be successful, even if they don't have those prerequisite skills. We can make it work. It's magic when it happens properly.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on with us. This was awesome. I love getting a window into your experience and your kind of your take on the program. It was great, and I'm really happy to be able to share this with everybody.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
See ya.
Best of luck with all the finals.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
All right, bye.